Let me welcome you to this CREST offering deep dive entitled Navigating Care Fatigue. My name is Terry Young, and I work with the CREST Leadership Group. And this particular deep dive is presented as one of our resources for leaders in the midst of their challenges of life and leadership. Obviously, this particular deep dive is about the matter of when we feel weariness coming on and when we feel what is often referred to as compassion fatigue. For this particular deep dive, we're going to provide you several resources that are in addition to the content of this deep dive. We're also going to provide you some simple note pages, so we'd encourage you to follow along, take some notes as you desire, as the PowerPoints and the presentation proceeds. This is also the kind of topic that is very valuable sharing with others, sitting around a table. If you are involved in work that involves the care of people, care fatigue is something we all experience. I remember back in my own ministry experience of having periods of time when I felt incredibly weary and tired. But it was not simply a physical weariness, it was a deeper weariness than physical. And this is where we enter the zone of compassion fatigue or care fatigue. We want to help you navigate through this particular matter of care fatigue and members of your team. And it's most valuable if you're able to process together at several points. I'm going to prompt you at those points to stop the video or take the end of each session. There's going to be 5 particular segments, brief segments of this deep dive. Take some time at the end of each segment to discuss together your insights, your experience, maybe some very current type of reality that you're dealing with, and make this an effort to help one another to, as the words of scripture say, to not grow weary in doing good. We do get weary, but we need to keep the good that we are doing in the world ongoing. The battle is, what do we do with the weariness? I have a little reminder in my office of my grandfather's career. My grandfather was a coal miner in Boone, Iowa, and I have one of his coal lamps that he used. This is a very small version of the larger coal lamp that coal mine lamps that they use. They put the fuel in the bottom here, and they would light this. And this particular one was one that was a early signal of perhaps some gases in the mine. This would flare in a different way to alert coal miners of danger in the mine. Before my grandfather's era, they used canaries. You may have heard of the adage, when the canary stops singing, and you may wonder where that came from. There's actually a book by an educator a few years ago when he wrote a book by that very title, When the Canary Stopped Singing. And it was his way of profiling that educators may be harbingers of greater things within the wider society that we need to pay attention to. That when educators, people-intensive work, when nurses and doctors, people-intensive work, when clergy, people-intensive work, when they begin to evidence greater levels of fatigue and burnout and life-altering fatigue, that's a harbinger of wider things going on in the society. When the canary stops singing is this idea that widespread care fatigue could be a harbinger. It is a serious sign of real trouble and danger in the wider environment in which we live. And I think we're in a time in COVID and hopefully post-COVID where many, many people are saying, I am so tired. Today's frontline givers are evidencing more fatigue than ever. And thus, this issue requires, we believe, more attention than ever. But we send people down into the mine and we say, just keep working. And they look around and they see canaries that have fallen over, canaries that are not conscious. And perhaps those who send workers down in the mine say, just get back to work. It'll be okay. He's just sleeping. Make more money, care for more people. But we can't ignore harbingers. And that's what this particular deep dive is about. I want to, in this early introductory segment, give you just an overview, a bigger, higher level picture of what it is that we are all dealing with when we are engaged in caring work. And many of you who watch this will be in intensive caring work. That is, much of your work is people intensive. There are four particular elements that we find in our work. One is the technique. It is the work itself. It's the day-to-day labor and work that we do to simply carry on with a social service agency, with an agency perhaps that is helping single moms or helping those who are in poverty, or you're helping those who have mental health challenges, and you're at the front line of that. You're in congregational work, and there's the technique of all of that. That technique is somewhat the effort and labor work that we do. But then there's the relationships that we have with people that we travel with, and we have relationships of peers and colleagues, but we also have relationships with people in need. There's then, in the bigger picture, there's contextual strain. There are wider world issues and there are impact points that affect your clients, and it adds to your clients' load and their particular struggles, their challenges. They walk in the door with their challenges, but they also walk in the door with wider contextual strains. So that when economic forces become to be more onerous, when world events begin to lay heavy on people's hearts, they're not only dealing with their parenting challenge or their life season challenge or the particular circumstance they're in, they're dealing with wider issues. That contextual strain also affects your agency, your congregation. Congregations that I've heard of in recent days that have laid off staff. They've laid off staff because of financial pinch points, a constraint in resources. And so that has a ripple effect, and people's employment is affected, but then the people who are still there within that congregation employed, it affects them as well. It's a strain, and it's contextual. All of these things are absorbed. That is, we may not be conscious of it, but we are bobbing along, or we're seeking to keep our head above water in a stream that has technique, relationships, contextual strain, and we're absorbing the things that are in the water. It's all the things we take in. So this gives insight into what's going on with me in the midst of my frontline work. It's all of these things. This might be a good point for you and your team to go back to this particular slide, and we'll provide the slides for you to look at this and say which one of these right now seems to be taking the greatest toll on you. Which one of these seems to be adding the greatest load, and which one are you struggling with the most? It's the bigger picture of caring work. If we take a closer look at caring work and people-intensive vocations, we just need to remind ourselves of the following. It is high-stakes work. When you're dealing with the lives of people, you don't start your days with a sense that you're dealing with widgets, you're dealing with some product of some kind. You're dealing with people. You're dealing with a mom, a dad. You're dealing with children. You're dealing with families. You're dealing with life crises. You're dealing with people who are in extremis. They are in trouble. There's some measure that it could turn out very badly if the present course they're on just continues on. So it's high stakes work. It's also complex, continuous, and it's diverse. People caring and caring work in general is similar to a triage. It is similar to an ER. You never know what's going to come in the door, and it might be simple, straightforward, but it could be very complex. It could be very puzzling, and it's diverse. It changes moment by moment, day by day. You have different intensities of need. You have different levels of need. You have different situations of need. And so it is complex. The third thing about caring work is that it is punctuated by the unexpected. Sometimes you get accustomed to the type of things you deal with, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue comes something that you've not really seen before. That adds an extra level of awareness and a need for discernment and wisdom, and you find yourself having to reach for a deeper reservoir of wisdom. You find a need to reach out to others to say, help me with this. And so it is punctuated by the unexpected. Fourthly, it is provided little structure for prioritizing. And that's the nature of people-intensive work, is that it is triage work. In a sense, you have to triage, but it's often very difficult to know, how do I prioritize the encounter I'm about to have with the encounter I just had that needs so much more, when I know this encounter is not going to require as much, but I need to deal with each one as they come. And how do I prioritize? We're provided a little training on that. We learn it often, I think, through the school of experience. But that's another particular point we need to realize in caring work. The fifth area is that our work in recent days has been complicated by a turn to more digital and less person-to-person communication. So that's a unique factor of the last couple of years, is that our caring work has changed, and we've had to adjust, we've had to adapt. And I know those who are counselors who have found they've had to adjust, and clients have had to adjust to a digital type of face-to-face, and they've been able to do so. There is some loss of the very visceral present in the room, but there's been adaptation to that. But it's a burden, and it's a heaviness that you need to deal with, and it is an element of load that some have had to carry. And it's a particular adjustment of our level of attention and how we pay attention to people that we care for. The final point I would make is that it is tossed by rapid external change, or very unexpected, unanticipated external change. So caring work in the recent season we've all been in is one of adapting on the fly, it seems, week by week, month by month, in keeping with what protocols have been and what particular government mandates have been. And that simply adds to some of the burden of caring work. So this is session one. We want to encourage you after this session, take a bit of time, if you're in a group, to process this, talk together about which of these things you resonate with, which ones are most acute, which ones you've learned some things in your experience of how to deal with. That can be very valuable to other colleagues. It can be a way of peer mentoring and encouraging one another along the way. As we move into our second segment, we're going to then take a specific look at what is care fatigue, and what are the signs of care fatigue, and explore together the particulars of this particular challenge in our care and love and support and compassion for people in the world.